Hi, this is Jessica Pettit here, and who do I have the pleasure of interviewing today?
Jahbari McLennan.
Excellent. And how did you get to start doing diversity and inclusion work?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's something that as you grow up and you get into the business world, you start to see uh, how I think people are treated differently. But for me, I view that. But when I view it, I probably won't say nothing out loud. I'll just process it as in a way, how can I allow my success to speak for me? Because what I realize is that for myself, as me as an individual, is that I can do a lot when it comes to I have results to show, and then I have the ability to be able to come out and speak. So, I mean, starting early off, I was in sales, and when you are in sales, you get opportunity to come across so many different people, so many different characteristics, and so many different ages. And I found out people who were maybe much older than me, obviously they grew up in a different time. So how they will relate to me or the things they would say to me will be interesting. I'm like, okay, so that didn't really bother you, what you just said. And as you get old, a little bit younger, some people are a little bit more aware. So for me as an individual, I'm very big. I know we're going to get into this later, but I'm very big at flipping the negative into positive because at the end of the day, I always tell people I attempted to be negative. I attempted to be like that person, like, no, we're going to take you down. It just don't work for me. I mean, it worked for me, but I found out the way it worked for me is that me coming out, continue to be the right positive example, that speak volume better than any other way that I've attempted to go about. So that's how I got into it, just kind of in that sales experience and getting exposed to so many different people from different ages, and just having a lot of fire that I had to put out and just realizing how people handle situations. From there, it just kind of allowed me to come out, speak about it, and even more just be the example.
Excellent. Well, we'll talk more about it in detail, so stay tuned. So how I like to get started is to ask two big idea questions that are rolling around in my head. There's no wrong answer, so I'm just curious how these two big things land on you and your experience. So the first one is the concept of diversity dividend. So typically this kind of shows up when people are talking about like return on investment for diversity training in general or something. So in thinking about investment, action, and return, what does diversity dividend mean to you?
Explain that one more time. That was the first time I heard it that way.
I know, it's just a concept that I'm kind of batting around. So the idea is like, how is this financially profitable for me to do this diversity training? What is the ROI on diversity training? What are the diversity dividends on doing diversity and inclusion work? So thinking about investment, action, and return, what does that mean to you?
So I think it opened up people's eyes to different perspectives. Because I think what happens is when you have, first of all, a workspace and you have a lot of different people who have a lot of different views on topics, it makes you have those awkward moments, right? You want to avoid this conversation, you want to avoid that conversation, but we all know that that conversation needs to be had, or whether it's one-on-one or as in a group. So I think it's very, very important to address the elephant in the room instead of just letting it sit there. Because I think it's just like anything else. I mean, if we know that we are wanting to be healthy, just physically healthy, then what is the obvious thing to do to start adapting and adjusting our ways to taking care of our body? Because if we don't, well, what's going to happen? Our life is going to decrease, or we're not going to have that much energy. We're going to be affected by what we can do and what we can't do. I think it's the exact same thing when you are thinking about diversity. We're going to limit your things you can do. It's going to slow down things that you probably want to do. And if you're in business, you want to move forward and you want to grow. And because of the internet, because of what we can be able to do with so much information that's out there, I think it's very important to start presenting this in the right context. Because what happens is you'll see a headline that say 3 words, and then all of a sudden you just keep going about your day. But when you have that conversation, you have now based your whole conversation off of 3 words instead of going in, reading what did they mean. I mean, that's advertisement, right? You see something and you're like, oh man, yes, that's exactly what I think. Well, you don't know the context. They were just doing that to get your attention. And when you do that, I think in a more of a training setting, it allows you to see the context table from beginning to end, and then you get the context. So I think context is lost so many times when you don't sit down and bring this important topic to individuals who, one, never been exposed to it, who've had negative exposure, who had positive exposures. Because when you do that, well, now all three of them, all of them come or leave the room having a different perspective and learn. If they are somebody who wants to grow, if they're somebody who wants to see how to integrate this in what they're doing, then they will take that and learn how to move forward.
I totally agree. The interesting take on diversity dividend, I think, is really, it's fascinating to me as people discover or disclose what their professional work settings, work experience has been, but it also comes up in personal relationships like you're talking about. So the other big concept idea is asterisk other duties assigned. So sometimes I see this like as the last line of a job description, but sometimes it also just describes what you do in addition to your actual job responsibilities that may or may not be recognized or rewarded. So asterisk other duties assigned, what does that mean to you?
Asterisk other duties assigned. So I think when you think of somebody's identity, the reason they accept a position or why they do something, well, anything they do outside of that is going to be tied to their identity. So when I think about it, the way you put it is, it just makes me think about the person or the individual, basically the person who you're speaking with or talking to. They will tell you a lot more about what they do outside of work, right? Mm-hmm. And if you take that in consideration, and ask them, hey, why do you do this? Then you start actually peeling back layers that help you understand, okay, this is your view. This is where you stand. This is why you do this. So just kind of off the cuff, that's the first thing that I think about when you ask that.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah. So you started a little bit at the beginning, and I want to make sure that we have time to come back to it. So you talked about your sales background, but you also talked about learning about different generations and how you bring a different generational perspective to your D&I conversations. I think sometimes we automatically assume older people don't get it and younger people do get it. And I deal with younger people all the time who don't get it. And older people have been on the planet a longer time, so they do get it. Right. But it is varied. Can you talk a little bit about your turning negatives into positives across generations and what that means for your work?
Yes. So the first thing I always start with is, what's your self-talk? And that's a simple question. It's an awareness question that I tell everybody to take into consideration. Because I think first, before you can point anything out, before you can say anything, you need to be aware where you stand on that topic. You need to be aware, like, where you are. You're in a negative space, and most likely if you're in a negative space, you're going to speak in a negative manner, or you're in a positive. But I think as individuals and clients that I work with is that I love to figure out, okay, how are you different? Like this a couple weeks ago, last week, I had a chance to do a workshop meeting, which is what I always do. And I'll come in, I'll figure out exactly how is each individual different and how can you embrace that? So what happens is when we communicate something, we communicate it the way we know how to communicate it. And so when that's communicated to the other person, well, they don't communicate your way. And what happens is we go through life thinking if somebody don't understand the way I communicate, they don't understand the way I go about things, then they're wrong. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the problem right there. The biggest problem is that we want to stay in our own bubble, in our own mind, and we want to push those people out. But when we actually let those people in, we start to gain more perspective on life, which brings me to that question. Okay, regardless of maybe what topic is going on, what's your self-talk? Why are you viewing things this way? Why, when you look at somebody who is older, so I'm going to go in a few words, so traditionally, so somebody who's probably born in the 1990s to 1946, somebody grew up in that time frame, well, we know that people who grow up in a certain time frame, that's how they're conditioned. They are conditioned already based on how they grew up to go about things, to handle situations. Looking at technology, looking at, whether it's racism, looking at different things. And because of the age they was born in, they would have a certain or different response, just basically more different to like a baby boom or Generation X or Generation Z, because they just experience something differently. And so what I love to do is figure out, okay, where do you stand as a traditionalist, as a baby boomer, as a Gen X? Where do you stand, so that I can understand if you want help? Because the key is everybody don't want help. If you want help, then let's figure out where you're at, because I can't take you to another place if I don't understand where you stand. Just like a GPS, right? I cannot tell you where to go unless I know where you're starting from. Then I can tell you where you want to go. It's the same thing with each human being when you start bringing out certain topics. And it starts with me of your self-awareness. Who are you? What do you stand for? Why do you have those views? What have conditioned you to have those views? Okay, now where do you want to go from there? And based off of that, it allows me to say, okay, well, let's we'll start off with assessments and simple things, because once again, for most people who really, really want to see the growth, it'll come to them. But some people who just want to kind of stay in a rut, stay negative, they don't care about their self-talk because they think they're right all the time. Well, I found out that those people go down the drain pretty soon.
That's great. That's wonderful. 2 favorite questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Number 1, what have you changed your mind about lately?
What have I changed my mind about lately? The terminology of sales profession. And I went through a year where I kind of transitioned out of saying, hey, I'm a salesperson, or I'm a professional salesperson. And the reason I did that, it was because I think we get lost, right? So I'm going to be completely honest. So we get lost in thinking that, hey, maybe if we chase something we're good at instead of letting something we're great at, then we can be able to find more purpose in life. So for me, sales and speaking has always been something I was passionate about, but I didn't really identify my speaking until I was in sales. And so I initially left the quote unquote sales profession to go pursue something in speaking, which I was good at. And after trying to make sense of that reality, after literally putting everything I had into it, it was like, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't make sense. This is the way that I have entered into the world, and I enjoyed it because I was able to meet a lot of different people, but also I was helped to figure out how to help people in many of different ways in the products and services that I have. So I literally had to flip my mind back on sales, and then now have allowed me to enter into a profession that I'm going to enjoy, but I even have that experience to be able to match up with that for me personally. And I think when you just look at internet and everything, people think that, sales is a bad thing, is a negative thing. Well, no, we're all sold on something. We're all believe something, but I think whatever the information you've been exposed to will determine if you think it's good or bad. And I think that's just the nature of social media, right? Any platform you're on, whatever page you click on, you can be able to find something that's going to be negative or it's going to be positive. And based off of that, you'll probably go about your day or go about your way and attempt to figure out ways to continue to keep that view, whether it's negative or positive. So, sales. Sales has been the thing I changed my mind on. I love sales. I would never go back in kind of that dark lane because it makes sense for me. And I can be able to do a lot of more service and justice in today's world being this quote unquote self-repression. So that's mine.
Yeah. Well, that might lead to the next favorite question, which is, what do you absolutely know?
Well, there you go. Yes. I believe that I know what allowed people to make decisions. I think anybody who turned this on or listened to this, well, regardless of how it's titled, regardless of how it's put together, the curiosity in them will say, oh, I want to learn. Now, as human beings, we know if we are curious that we are going to learn more about it. We're going to look into it. This happens as a little child, as I have my first one coming April 9th. So
congratulations.
Thank you very much. So it's interesting that we never lose that curiosity. It just get channeled towards different things. And so when I look at sales, and which I love. It's interesting to see what allow people to make decisions. And when you realize, okay, each person clicks a certain way, and you can narrow it down after a while, and you can become to a point where you can predict, hey, if this is going to make a good outcome for you, most of the time, if it's business owners, if this is going to be good for your business, if it's going to serve your customers well, and if it's going to bring a profit in, and if it's going to keep you in business, would you move forward on this decision? Who, as a good business owner, would say no?
Right.
Right. So when you start to see, those reasons why people exist in business or in life or whatever, you start to say, I love sales because I can study people and see how they make decisions, see how to properly communicate. In a sales profession.
Wonderful. All right. It is time for lightning round. Pew, pew. Are you ready? Okay. So you picked 3 random numbers from my icebreaker cards. So I'm going to ask you the question. There's either easy, intermediate, or deep. Okay. I will tell you what level it is. I will ask you the question, and you have to answer it as quickly and succinctly as possible.
Okay, quickly. I got
you. Okay. Number 4 is an easy question. Okay. Name the group where you felt the happiest, most integrated, and most accepted.
The group? When I was in college playing football with my coach who was leading me, my mentor.
Go State. Good job. Okay. Number 9, also an easy. Okay. If you were trapped in a TV show for 1 month, which show would you choose and why?
I was trapped in a TV show. Oh my gosh, I don't even watch. I guess I'm gonna have to say This Is Us. This is why? Because me and my wife, that's the only show that we watch together, and I probably would want to be Randall. He's the cool dad that makes everything happen. So I'll pick that.
Excellent. Okay, last one, number 21, intermediate level. Okay. How many times are you willing to try something before you either give up or get it right? Give an example.
At least, give an example, 8 to 9 times, and I need to give an example. Oh, what have I tried? Man, I try everything. I lose count after a while, to be honest with you. I guess, man, that's a good question. What have I tried? I think about sales because, like I'll take somebody's advice and they say, hey, maybe try this particular close. I'm like, okay, well, I'll try this particular close to see how the customer may go about it. And if I keep doing it, I'll tweak it. I'll make some changes because I understand, like, after you do things at least 3 or 4 times, you probably didn't do it right. So it's something you can improve on. So it's just usually different sayings that I would personally use, and kind of in sales profession is the title as close. So that, I think that would probably be what I've used numerous of times. And I say 9, but I could have used it much more than that. So
excellent. Cool. Well, I really am excited that we got some time to connect. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
Yes, so they can be able to find me on Instagram. Jahbari09 is on there. And, of course, you can find me on my Facebook page. I'm very live there. And, of course, my website, JahbariMcLennan.com.
Excellent. And the links will be provided just below. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you do. Everything matters and your work matters. So thank you, thank you, thank you.